Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff like that. And speaking of all sorts of good stuff, I'm really happy to be joined today by Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I'm doing good. You know what one of my favorite things is in life?
Uh-oh, what's that?
Women. And today is International Women's Day.
It is Marvel.
If Captain Marvel opens today, it's International Women's Day, and I'm hoping to celebrate like Wade Wilson, if you know what I'm saying. Woohoo!
I don't encourage or endorse that. I do not want to celebrate it like Wade Wilson, but I'm glad that you are. That's funny because now whenever I hear of International Women's Day, all I can really think of is Deadpool. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, it is comic related and nerdy.
It is. It is both. All right, guys, listen, and Ashley's, just so you guys know, Ashley's not here today. She has the day off. And listen, before we get to our main topics here today, we have a few things that we're going to get to off the top. First of all, as Robert already mentioned, today is International Women's Day. And in the spirit of that, Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins, I'm a huge fan of Patty Jenkins.
Me too.
She put out on social media this terrific post just saying, congratulations to Team Captain Marvel. Can't wait to see it. And our whole Wonder Woman crew wishes you a great weekend. And I love that picture that she posted, which is great. And that's always nice to see. And, you know, I always get a big kick out of when I hear like guys over at DC saying, man, like when we hear Henry Cavill talk about, man, I love Marvel movies. And I love it when we hear guys from the Marvel side going, man, I love Superman, or I love, these things. To me, it's always a really nice, classy thing to see, because it just kind of reemphasizes the point, Robert, that I've been making for a long time, is that all these people in the upper echelons of the comic book production world, they know that what's good for one is good for the other. They know that when the other one succeeds, it can do nothing but help them as well, if they put out good product, of course. So to me, it's always kind of fun to see these things. You get a kick out of seeing this stuff?
You know, I love it. And I wish that all fandom felt this way.
Would do the same thing?
I mean, I've never understood. I've always been deliriously excited when genre fare of any kind comes out. You know, and I've never made a distinction. When I was a kid, maybe I liked the Justice League more than I liked the Avengers, only because everybody told me that the Avengers were more powerful than the Justice League. And I'm like, no, they're not. But I was like 6. I was like 6. And then I started reading Marvel comics, and I loved the Avengers. I loved Justice League. I loved the X-Men. I loved Teen Titans. And there's this weird rivalry in fan communities now. It's so bizarre. I'm like, I love it all, man. Don't we all love it all? Isn't it great? I'm totally stoked. I get to see Captain Marvel tonight in the Cinerama Dome, which I love, and I'm very excited. Can't wait for those post-credit scenes. It's going to rule. Yeah,
Anne's off right now. Actually, as we speak, Anne is off watching Captain Marvel again and all that kind of stuff. And then we got Shazam coming. We'll talk about Shazam in just a second. But before we get to Shazam, guys, let's talk about this also off the top. Now, we've known for some time that Lord of the Rings, a TV series, is coming to Amazon. Now, there have been a lot of rumors and speculation going on about what is this movie going to be? What's it going to be like? When is it going to happen? There were a lot of rumors that it was going to focus on a young Strider, a young Aragorn, right? So there was that, people thinking that. Some people thought it might be a younger version of a Bilbo, perhaps. They were doing all that kind of stuff. Well, put the speculation to rest. Amazon has now confirmed when it's happening, and I got to tell you, I'm excited about it. Now, according from the report on Coming Soon, they wrote this. And now, so here's the thing. They've announced that it's going to happen in the Second Age. The Second Age. Now, here's what Coming Soon wrote. Casual fans may not realize it, but Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring actually depicted the end of the Second Age when the last alliance of elves and men confronted Sauron's forces. You remember, that's how, of course, Lord of the Rings began, showing us that ancient battle that happened thousands of years ago. That was the end of the Second Age. Let's see. The Second Age covered nearly 3,441 years, and it began after the banishment of Morgoth. He was the boss to Sauron, the Dark Lord before Sauron. There's a lot of story potential in that time, including the rise of Sauron, the creation of the One Ring, and the emergence, I should say, of the Ring Wraiths. Now, as somebody who grew up loving Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit was really the first novel I ever read, and it's just been a part of my life ever since. I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, Oh God, yes. It's not direct prequel. I mean, it is prequel because it happens before, but it's not, direct prequel. You're going ancient into the past with it, covering some really cool story. Robert, you hear about this. Do you think this was the right move for a Lord of the Rings series? Or do you maybe think they should have gone like with a younger Strider and a younger things like that? How do you see that?
No, I think this is exactly what they should do. Like I've always said, this is leading up to, we might know that Sauron is eventually defeated, but how cool will it be to see the people that later become the ring wraiths or the Witch King of Agmar, to how they became that way? They might have been like nice dudes, and they thought they were doing a good thing by accepting those rings. I think it's fantastic. I mean, the same year that Star Wars came out, I was 10 years old. It was also the year that the Silmarillion was published.
Yep, which where a lot of stuff will come too.
Yeah, and Christopher Tolkien, Tolkien's son, put these notes together, and it was all backstory essentially. But I just love that they're going to do this. I'm not really a fan of most prequels, but this isn't so much a prequel. We're going back thousands of years, and they're going to depict events that were spoken about, but not as detailed as what we got in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And I think it's great. I just think they need to announce that they're going to make the whole thing in New Zealand, because why not? They've already got the armor.
Why not? Why not? Indeed. I mean, the landscape will be. I mean, you got the proper landscape, all that kind of stuff. It's a cheap place to shoot. So why the hell not? Just do it there. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll do the whole thing on sound stages. I don't know. But I mean, this thing's still years away. But right. I'm getting really excited. And I was very excited to hear when this thing's going to take place.
Me too.
Because it gives you enough, with tying into Sauron and the Ring, you're giving something familiar to the audience, while at the same time making it something completely new. Yeah. And that's kind of the best of both worlds to me. So I'm excited about it.
Me too.
All right, guys. Let's now move on to this one last thing off the top before we get on to the other topics here. Shazam. We have been talking about Shazam for a while and how excited we are, how great these trailers have been. I've been excited for this film ever since. Well, first of all, I was big when they announced the director, but really, really big when they announced Zachary Levi was going to play it, because that told me, by getting that guy to be your lead, it told me what kind of film they were going to make. And it was the kind of film that I personally think was the exact right one to make. And anyway, we talked about on the show the other day that the social media embargo, they were lifting this social media embargo on the movie almost a month before the movie came out, taking a page out of Marvel's playbook when they're really confident in a film. So they did that, which was a great sign that Warner Brothers believes in it. And now, Rob, it looks like that was worth it. It looks like that was a good thing for them to do, because the social media reactions for this has come out. Listen to some of these reactions. Our friend Eric Davis from over there at Fandango, he wrote, Captain Marvel has a great 90s sci-fi vibe and tone, unlike any other Marvel movie. Wait a second, that's Captain Marvel. I pulled up the wrong one. Hold a second here. Let me get this, because there is a reaction from Eric. Hold a second.
All of this just made me even that much more excited. Just like we speculated that the movie was great. That's why they were lifting the social media embargo. And I too read a lot of these responses, and man, it just sounds like a delightful film that I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I had the wrong one up. But let's go to what Eric said about Shazam. So I got Eric here. Eric wrote, Shazam is big, goofy, lovable, and unlike anything DC has done before. Definitely the vein of Tom Hanks' Big, but with the superhero with superhero action and lots of Batman and Superman references. I dug the film so much I wanted to give it a bear hug at the end of it, so that's great. IGN wrote, Shazam is DC's most joyful and sweet movie since the era of Christopher Reeve's Superman, a funny yet earnest coming-of-age story about a boy who learns that, well, with great power comes great responsibility. It doesn't reinvent the superhero movie wheel, but it's undeniably fun. Entertainment Tonight wrote, Shazam was damn near perfect in my book. My favorite DC movie, DCEU, whatever we're calling it now, by far, pure of heart, incredibly funny, full of in-jokes and references, brought me a childlike joy to watch. This role was made for Zachary Levi. Let's see here. Cinema Blend writes, DC is finally building a solid run. Shazam is a delight. It's a familiar origin structure, which is forgivable because of all the new that it brings to the table. Primarily, it's gleeful, childlike enthusiasm, and heartfelt perspective on family. It's also the role that Zachary Levi was born to play. The accolades go on. From comicbook.com, Shazam is such a brilliant movie. It's so tremendously fun and incredibly scary at some points, thanks to David F. Sandberg, who's got a background, obviously, as we know, in horror films. It blows away every expectation and is my new favorite DC movie. Gizmodo writes, Shazam is another win for DC. Sure, the humor and action you'd expect from a superhero film are there, but Shazam also stands out because of the emotional family story at its center. I had small issues with the hero/villain aspects, but the family stuff is dynamic and powerful. Our friend Peter from Slash Film writes, Shazam is parts Home Alone, parts Big, a crowd-pleasing, family-friendly, joy-filled, wish-fulfillment superhero film, which gets a bit over the top and cheesy at times, but it's fun and funny, and I'm always surprised at how much it wears its hearts on its sleeve. And guys, I mean, Rob, this thing, it's the accolades are huge for this. Now, and what's really exciting about it, Rob, is when I reflect back on the conversations we've had about what this looks like they're going for, getting a guy like Zachary Levi, our anticipation for this film, it sounds like it's living up to all those things. You're hearing all these reactions. What's your response?
I can't be more delighted by this because it always, whenever I see a movie that I'm looking forward to and it doesn't quite work as well as I think it should, it always bums me out. I mean, I think that every studio movie should be this clockwork perfected thing, and I when I hear something that I've anticipated that it's already bringing joy to the jaded genre pundit crowd, I can't be more excited. I mean, it's exactly what you and I have been talking about for months. And after seeing these trailers, I'm glad the movie lives up to that hype. I mean, they probably have another $1 billion grosser on their hands. And again, what's really interesting is they no longer will we be talking about how dark you can't make dark DC universe movie jokes anymore. Between Aquaman and this, crowd-pleasing, rousing entertainments, 4-quadrant entertainments that everybody can go see, I think it's great. It's great for everybody.
I absolutely agree. Now, do you think this, like, we were expecting good, but does this maybe exceed the reactions? Does this exceed what you were thinking, or is this right around on par where you thought the reactions were?
No, I thought it was going to be good, but I was tempering my expectations. But clearly, it's great, and it's great. I mean, it's what I hoped. It's what I dared to hope. And I think it's fantastic. And, it was very funny because when remember when those first set photos dropped of Zachary Levi's costume, and people were unrelentingly making fun of it. And I was like, but it looks like it's right out of the comic books. I mean, he looks so good on camera because it's that bright, shiny Shazam look. It's not supposed to look dark. He looks great. And the fact that the lightning blast on his chest isn't just an emblem, like it's surging with energy. And I love it. I mean, I've always loved that costume. I think it's always looked great. I didn't know what people were bitching about. Now it's going to be iconic forever. And I love that.
Now, I will admit, I was one of the guys that said, I'm not sure that I'm feeling the look of the costume. Now, I also said, but who cares? It's just the costume. It's whatever. This movie's going to be great. But I admit, I was one of the guys that went, yeah, I admit I'm not feeling this. But this just goes to show you sometimes these behind the scenes candid shots just don't really give a full picture of what it's going to look like and how it's going to play once you're actually immersed in the movie.
Well, I mean, it's so funny because that scene where he's standing in the like 7-Eleven or whatever, the convenience store, and he's like, I would like your finest beer, please. And just the image of him in costume standing in a convenience store, that to me is the movie, because you're seeing this character that he's literally popping out of the reality. He's popping out of the real world he's supposed to inhabit. And that's exactly what the movie's about. So the costume, they knew what they were doing. I mean, these costumes are sweated over, and they spend sometimes months trying to figure them out. And just seeing it on camera, I'm like, oh, well, they nailed that. And it's apparently they nailed everything else too. So that's fantastic. I can't wait to see this movie. My anticipation is, I mean, dude, April, Shazam, Hellboy, Game of Thrones, Endgame. And my mom's turning 80.
And so
Amazing.
even more reason to celebrate. And this just kind of reaffirms something that I thought for a long time. You remember when they announced Walter Hamada was coming in to take over the DCEU and he was going to give new direction to the DCU, I was very encouraged by that because I like the guy's track record. And he brought in a new focus and a new direction. And we are now we're getting a better picture now. Now, Aquaman came out, great, that's one film. But now you got two in a row that looks like they're going to be winners. This is what they call in the business a winning streak.
Right.
This is a winning streak, which is something the DCU has not had before. I mean, for me personally, I've liked all the DCU movies, but I know a lot of people didn't, that's fine. But this is going to be two films in a row that are going to be successful, that are going to win over the critics, and that are going to win over the audiences. And this is a winning streak. And if this is the new type of reality that Walter Hamada is bringing us, I think the DCU right now is on better footing than it's been in a long, long time. And I've talked to a friend of mine who saw it, and he said, one of the things he said to me was that this really does kind of reemphasize what they've been talking about as far as they're moving away from the shared cinematic universe. Like there's lots of references in this movie as jokes, but that it's clear they are isolating the movies now. And if Aquaman and Shazam seem to be any indication, it looks like that little experiment is working out real well. Now, what I'm waiting for now, Robert, is the barrage of all the people online saying that all these critics are just being paid off by Warner Brothers. So that's coming, right? That's what's coming up next, right? Because that's what happens, right? If any critics like the movie, it's because they were paid off by the studio, right? So where are these right now? Anyway, it is great to see the reaction to this. I've been excited about it. I'm so thrilled for Zachary Levi, who, some people wondered, was he going to have a big career after Chuck? And here he is. And yet another actor who has 1 foot in the MCU because he was in one of the Thor movies, or two of the Thor movies technically, and 1 foot now in the DC universe.
What I also think is this is purely speculation on my part. I think this bodes well for a Flash movie. I think, they've had this movie in development for a long time. I'm sure part of their problem with developing a Flash movie is what direction were they going to go in? I mean, Flashpoint, if they were going to do that, all of reality has changed. People that were dead are no longer dead. I think it's clear now, after the sheer phantasmagoria fun of Aquaman, and now this, a crowd-pleasing, humorous romp. I think now they have a much better direction because of Aquaman and now Shazam of where to take a Flash movie. And because I loved Ezra Miller's Flash. And
Me
I think
too.
that
I loved his character in that.
I did too. And I think now the tone, like what kind of a Flash movie were we going to make? And now they know. Now they've got a definite direction to head in. And I think, the revolving door of directors and script writers, it might finally end and we might get a really great big screen Flash adventure.
Fingers crossed at this point. Let's see what Walter Hamada has in mind, but it looks like this dude's on a winning streak. All right. We're now going to move on to some of our main topics today, guys. Now, how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? It's really rather simple. You guys select them by sending me your topics and questions by simply going to our website, www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. And when you go there, you'll find a form, fill out that form and hit submit. And maybe you will see your topic or question here on the John Campea Show. With that said, let's move on to our first email of the day. And our first email today comes to us from one of our Patreon supporters, Ian Barth. And by the way, Ian, thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter and supporting the show. Hey, JC crew. Just saw that The Sun had an interview with the Greatest Showman director, Michael Gracie, who said that they have now started working on a sequel to The Greatest Showman. I know that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen, but what do you think of the idea of a sequel? What do you think it would be about? Thanks, and stay filthy. All right, so for those of you who do not know, I love The Greatest Showman. I loved that movie. It had some weaknesses in the functional story part a little bit, but the music of it and the vibrancy and the life and the joy in the movie is just overwhelming. And I can listen to that soundtrack all day, every day. I just love that movie.
Dude, you can perform that soundtrack. Come on.
You've probably heard me perform the soundtrack a little bit. I am a big fan of the soundtrack. But anyway, so just to be specific so we know what he's talking about, this is exactly what the director of The Greatest Showman said. Michael Gracie, who said this. When a movie becomes as big of a success as this, it's only natural there is demand for a sequel. So, those discussions have started, and we're now working on one right now. And when he's not kidding when he talks about success. Now, here's the funny thing. The Greatest Showman, I think, had a 20 million or less opening weekend. It had a very small week opening weekend, but it had legs and kept going and became one of the highest grossing musicals. And when you think about the long storied history of musicals in Hollywood, it's one of the highest grossing musicals of all time. As a matter of fact, it is the 5th biggest, highest grossing musical of all time, behind Beauty and the Beast, the 2017 one, which made 1.2 billion. Mamma Mia, which was a huge surprise hit at 609 million. La La Land made 446. Les Miserables, the 2012 version, also starring Hugh Jackman, by the way, 440 million. Then Greatest Showman comes in the 5th spot at 434, and just below it, Grease, 396, and Mamma Mia 2, almost making $400 million as well. So Michael's not wrong, man. When you get a little movie like this, and it ends up generating over $400 million, getting close to $450 million, you got to consider doing a sequel. Now, as far as where do I think they'll go with this, Rob, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure where you go with this. I'm not sure what story you tell. I mean, especially when you consider how the film ended. So without giving anything away, when you consider how the film ended, it's like, okay, where do they go with this? But all I know is this. You gather these characters together again, and you put that kind of life and that type of energy into the music of the film. I'm going to be there. And I'm going to be there with bells on. So where do they go? I have no idea, but I would love to see this happen. And you're absolutely right. This doesn't guarantee, just because a filmmaker says we're working on it, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I personally hope it does happen, because if you can, even if this movie makes like 25% less, makes like $300 million, it would still be profitable if they stuck to the budget of the last one. So I want to see it. Rob, you're hearing about this. Do you think it's something they should do or even can do?
Well, again, it always comes down to me that the story they're telling, and is it a good story? Is the script good? But I think, you could take the show on the road, literally take the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus to Europe, and I don't know what time period it's going to be set in or anything like that, but why not? Bring it on. I was surprised. I did not see The Greatest Showman in the theater. I bought it on a whim. I bought the steel book because I was in Best Buy buying like computer cables or something, and it was like one of these lone.
Jumped out at you.
Yeah, it was this lone disc of one of those end caps. It was the only one there. It was an empty end cap except one steel book for The Greatest Showman. And I'm like, people like this movie. I'll buy it. And my girlfriend and I watched it, and we loved it. I mean, it's just great. I love the film more than I thought, and no wonder it was successful. It's what movies are all about, man. Bring it on. I want to see the second one.
I was really surprised by how much. I've always been a fan of Zac Efron, but I was really surprised by how much I love Zac Efron and I don't know how to say Zendaya. Zendaya, whatever. I thought the two of them were terrific. Okay, so I brought up that list of the box office listings, Rob. Talk for a second about, where for you that a film like Greatest Showman kind of fits in that pantheon of like some of your favorite musicals of all time. How does that fit for you?
Well, look, my favorite musicals of all time are not any of the ones that were on that list. My favorite musical of all time is Singing in the Rain. And Singing in the Rain is literally a movie about movie making. It's about the transition that happened between silent movies and sound in movies. And, I grew up watching An American in Paris. And look, I love Grease. When I was a kid, I could sing. I had both the double album. And I knew all the moves from Born to Hand Jive, baby. I mean, I don't know them now.
I didn't think you were going to say hand jive. I thought you were going to say something else the way you were moving, but that's okay.
Beauty school dropout, no graduation day for you. I could sing that whole album. So, but I also like another one of my favorite musicals of all time. If you've never seen it, there's a movie called The Umbrellas of Cherbourg that was directed by a Frenchman named Jacques Demy. And it's one of the earliest films from Catherine Deneuve. And not only is the entire movie is sung, all of it. People don't just talk; they sing everything. It is the most. It was one of the most beautiful, one of the most romantic, and one of the most tragic movies you'll ever see. But The Umbrellas of Cherbourg and Singing in the Rain. But this is up there, man. I mean, I love Les Mis. I've loved I grew up going to the shows, the Broadway shows, not on Broadway. I'd see the revivals in Seattle, but I love musicals. I love West Side Story's up there. West Side Story's probably.
Yeah. And Spielberg's bringing us a West Side Story.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I'm really excited about?
Bring it on.
There were a couple of films on the list that have Hugh Jackman, and I've already got my tickets. Hugh Jackman's coming to the Hollywood Bowl, and he's going to be. It's a one-man show where he's going to be performing like a bunch of the music from Les Mis and from Greatest Showman and some other stuff as well. So I'm kind of stoked about that.
Well, people don't know that you're a secret song and dance man.
I'm a little bit of a secret song and dance man.
You're a secret song and dance man. You are.
All right, let's move on now to the next email today. And the next email today comes to us from CB, who writes, recently, I wanted to start building up my collection of Disney films, always a tricky thing to do thanks to their old convention of the vault, which is a marketing technique that keeps their classics locked away and released only sporadically for a limited amount of time. Recently, Bob Iger assured everyone that Disney Plus would have all of their films, including their entire catalog of vaulted work. Is the vault now dead? Should I even bother to buy films that I'll be paying to stream anyway? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And Rob, this has always been one of the most interesting things, kind of a marketing technique that Disney's always kind of been involved in, is the vault.
Yeah.
Like for example, like right now, you can't buy Aladdin right now. Even though Aladdin, a new one's coming out, you can't buy Aladdin right now. They rotate these things in and out. How would you describe the vault? Is this something that is a good thing that Disney has done, has been effective? And do you think it's good that they kind of get rid of it now that they're going to move it all to streaming?
I think that Disney putting up their entire back catalog is the greatest thing ever. Because, look, there's not going to be any more. Disney pioneered throughout their history. They pioneered re-releasing their animated classics throughout the years. When I was a kid in the 70s, I loved the live action movies that Disney made, like the Apple Dumpling Gang and Candle Shoe with Jodie Foster, and a really cool movie called Island at the Top of the World that no one's seen with David Hartman. It had the whale's graveyard and a giant dirigible. I love these movies. The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, the Dexter Riley movies with Kurt Russell. That was the first time he became really successful. If you haven't seen those, young Kurt Russell plays this really smart kid, strongest man in the world, Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. And all of these movies that Disney made, I think that's the smart play. Physical media is going away. And now there's going to be one place where you are assured of getting your Disney fix, and that is going to be that streaming service. I really am looking forward to the fact that I'll be able to go and see from Steamboat Willie on. Now, I want to see if they're going to put up their controversial, and some would say racist.
I know what you're going to say.
World War II cartoons that they did, their propaganda cartoons, and especially, I used to work for a company that we did all the special features for Disney at the time DVDs. I myself produced a feature-length documentary on the making of Tron, but we desperately wanted to get them to release Song of the South, which is a movie that they've suppressed. And we wanted to get people like Quincy Jones and Oprah Winfrey to sort of put Song of the South in context, because I had the Japanese Laserdisc of Song of the South, but they haven't put it out ever, I don't think, in America. And I think with the proper context, that story of Uncle Remus and Brer Rabbit, and I would love to see Disney put that up on the vault. I hope they put it all up on the vault. And if
I guarantee you they won't. I guarantee they won't.
I know.
And I don't think they should. I think that would be a monumental mistake, and they would just be asking for trouble doing that. Yeah. I think it would be a tremendous mistake.
But if they contextualize it, look,
there's no contextualize. That's the thing. In the way that the audience reacts to things today, there is no contextualizing stuff. We've seen that, right? It's just it's a losing battle.
We're not mature enough anymore. But other than that, I mean, all of the stuff about Tomorrowland, and I hope they put up there's things that I had access to, like Disney. There's a whole like a film of him talking about his vision for Epcot Center back in the 60s. That's amazing. I hope they put all of it up. And I'm really excited because, look, we talk about the demise of physical media. Well, Disney has been a pioneer since the dawn of the home video era of what to do. And now with Disney Plus, or what is it? Is it Disney Plus? Is that
Disney
what it's called?
Plus, yeah.
I think they're going to knock it out of the park. And I'm really excited. I mean, The Adventures of Davy Crockett With there's a what is that? There's like the black rider. I forget, not Zorro, but it's someone else, another Disney character. I could sit there and just click through all those and watch that stuff all day long.
Now here's a question. Somebody asked me the other day on the show, and I covered it in a companion video. Say, do you think, like with all the talk about the fact that Blu-ray sales have been dropping through the ice, that Samsung's now not even going to make Blu-ray players anymore, more and more people dropping out. Do you think Disney, is there a possibility, they asked, that Disney could just straight up shortly after Disney Plus launches just say, we're no longer putting our stuff out on Blu-ray as a way to incentivize people to go and sign up for Disney Plus? Do you think that's something they could do?
Yes. Because here's the thing, they take their movies out of circulation to create a demand. Well, what they're doing is they're creating a demand 24/7 for the entire Disney library. They don't have to keep manufacturing discs. They can control exactly their own product. They don't have to worry about who's going to buy what or where it's going. And it's exactly what the studios want. It's what all entertainment conglomerates that own their own materials, that own their own content, are going to do. And Disney, it's to me, it's the ultimate expression of what Disney has always done. They're going to put their entire catalog out, and you're going to pay for it every month. And it's what every content owner and content creator and IP holder wants to do. I mean, it's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually create an adjunct Marvel streaming service and a Star Wars streaming service that you'll have to pay extra for. Or you could get it all.
I don't think so, because I think they know having all of that under one roof is what is going to make the Disney Plus, in a world where new streaming services are popping up all the time. I think having your Disney stuff, your Pixar stuff, your Marvel stuff, your Star Wars stuff, all under one roof, it makes them the must-have streaming service, So right. I don't know if they would split, because Warner Brothers is doing exactly what you're saying. They're trying different avenues. They're trying having different streaming services, and I can't help but wonder if the Disney model might end up being the much more successful one.
I mean, can you imagine? Disney now has a streaming service that every single parent on planet Earth, and we're not running out of kids and parents anytime soon. There's a constantly renewing stream of viewers. It's a brilliant move.
All right, we've spent too much time on this topic. We got to move on to the next one here. Let's move on to the next email today. And the next email today comes to us from Donovan, who writes, have you heard of the Star Wars themed adventure area called Galaxy's Edge that will be opening late spring and summer at Disneyland and Disney World, respectively? Dates were just announced, and I'm stoked. Do you think these release dates were strategically placed merely months before Star Wars 9's release? How big of an impact do you think these will have on box office? Boost to the $2 billion club? Okay, so for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, and hopefully most of you by now do, there is this new Star Wars land coming that they are referring to as Galaxy's Edge,
dude,
which I cannot wait. I have been waiting on renewing my Disney annual pass because, look, there's no doubt about it. See, for those of you who don't know, here's the process you go through to get your Disney annual pass. You drive to Disneyland, if you're in my part of the world here, which is in Anaheim, California, about an hour drive from me. You go to Disneyland, and then you go into the park, and they have a bunch of these like huts. They're like huts. It's kind of cool. These huts set up. Now you go up and you say, I would like a Disney annual pass, please. And they say, beautiful. Please assume the position. And what you need to do is you need to drop your pants and bend over this log, and they ram you right up the dark tunnel with no lube, because the amount of money they charge you for an annual pass at this place is ungodly. It's ungodly. And you can quote me on that, right up the dark tunnel. It's obscene how much. And you know why they charge this type of obscene money for an annual pass? Because there are morons like me who will go and pay it because they're Star Wars land. They're charging not even the top tier one, Rob. Not even the top tier one is like $1,200 for one person for an annual pass. $1,200, and the top tier one
There's
is like,
mine.
there's yours. The top tier one with like no blackout, like it's the supreme one, no blackout dates at all, free parking, blah 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 blah. It's like $1,400 a person, and I'm starting to weep just thinking about how much money I got to pay for me and Ann to go get our annual passes. Is obscene.
Dude, everybody, what people don't know about Southern California is that everybody loves Disneyland.
Yeah.
Everybody. And
Yeah.
you know, most of the people that I know have either annual passes or and they're always going, you know, there are random moments that happen a couple times a week where my girlfriend Elizabeth will just pause. There'll be a lull in the conversation, or there'll be silence, or I'll be reading a book and she'll just say out of the corner of my ear, I'll hear her say, I want to go to Disneyland. Because we both have annual passes and
Dude,
we
that
never go enough.
That happens
And
all the time with me and Ann. It's the exact same thing. We would just be sitting around. It's like, want to go to Disneyland? Like, Ann would just say, let's go to Disneyland. I'm like, all right. And because we had annual passes. So away you go to Disneyland. And it's a great time.
And
But
Star Wars Land, dude, I want to move there. I wish they would have built housing. I would have got a condo or something. I'd just move in and live. It looks incredible. It looks incredible.
As a guy, I've mentioned this before on the show, as a guy who is not a huge fan of Harry Potter, I am always in amazement when we go to Universal Studios Hollywood. We do have season passes to Universal Studios Hollywood because it's like a couple $100, and
Right.
it's about 15-minute drive up the road from us. But even as somebody who's not a major Harry Potter fan, whenever we go to what do they call it? The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, or Potterland, I'm amazed. Like, I just feel like you walk into the world of Harry Potter, and I've always thought, oh my God, if they can even do half of a good job as they did with Harry Potter Land, the Wizarding World at Universal, and it's ridiculously huge. This Star Wars Land is ridiculously huge.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. Now, as far as the question goes about, because by the way, they're opening Galaxy's Edge in California, Disneyland in May.
May 31st.
May 31st, and then it's opening in Florida at Disney World in August, I think late August. The question, did they strategically plan this opening, and was it to help boost the box office of Star Wars? To me, the answer to that, Rob, is yes and no. Yes, they strategically planned the opening to be close to the launching of Star Wars Episode 9, but I don't think it was for the benefit of the box office. I honestly don't think opening this Star Wars Land is going to benefit the box office of Star Wars 9 tremendously much. What I do think it's going to do is increase the interest in people going to Star Wars Land, or Galaxy's Edge as they call it. Because if they had just opened this world 5 years from now in a vacuum of no Star Wars movies, there would still be a lot of excitement for it, make no mistake about it. But now you've got the hype of Star Wars Episode 9 coming, combined with this world. So I think it's more for the benefit of Galaxy's Edge as opposed to the movie. Do you think it's the other way around, or how do you see that?
No, I think everyone, you know, the hype is real. We will have seen the trailer by then, I'm sure. We'll know what the title of the film is. And the Star Wars hype machine is just gearing up. And this, I think, is a brilliant move. I mean, they've been planning this and they've been building this for quite some time now. It's been in the planning stages for years. And I just think it's a brilliant. So for 6 months in the lead up to the release of Episode 9, Galaxy's Edge is just kicking off marketing, not just for Episode 9, but for the entire franchise. I mean, you know, your lovely wife works at Hasbro, and I've been meaning to hit her up because, you know, people have been getting that Jabba's sail barge.
Yeah.
Kenner toy. That's people. It's arriving on people's doorsteps now, and I didn't pre-order one. But the hype is real, son, and I can't wait to go to this Galaxy's Edge. There's a real Millennium Falcon there. You can go in it. I mean, come on. One of the rides is during the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. And then I saw they had reporters visiting it last week, and like Nerdist did a story. They sent one of their correspondents there, and I mean, it looks amazing. I can't wait. I want, as I said, I want to live there. But I think the 6 months from the time it opens to the time of Episode 9, we're just going to be inundated with Star Wars everything, and I bring it on. I can't wait.
We're gonna get a number of days in a row where there's no John Campea show. I said, sorry guys, at Disneyland today.
Or we'll just live broadcast from Disneyland.
Or we can just live broadcast from Disneyland. All right, let's move on now to the next email today. And the next email today comes to us from Baron Ash, who writes, "Greetings, Ash, John, and Rob. I just read that Game of Thrones will have its Battle of Winterfell episode on the same weekend as the release of Endgame. As a fan of both, I am super excited, even though it all falls on exams. Can you remember a weekend that had as much or more hype from the nerd culture community? Rob, here's a tough question. Now, I think like a lot of people, we may have been planning on opening weekend of Avengers Endgame to see it on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and several times on Sunday and all that kind of stuff. But there are going to be some people, including you, that's going to face a tough decision, my friend, because one of the biggest events in one of the biggest shows in history, the Battle of Winterfell in Game of Thrones, is happening on the same weekend as Avengers Endgame. So let me ask you, are you going to DVR Game of Thrones and watch it later? Or are you going to put off your third or fourth screening of Endgame to sit at home and watch that Game of Thrones episode as it airs?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is call my doctor, because that weekend is basically nerd Viagra, and I'm going to be in a constant state of arousal all weekend, and I don't want to have a heart attack as my body ages. I mean, I can't believe Avengers Endgame and the Battle of Winterfell are on the same weekend. And, you know, I will have probably seen Avengers Endgame like 8 times. I hope it's 3 hours long, because each time I see it, it'll just mean that I'm that much closer to the Battle of Winterfell. But I mean, talk about, I don't even know. I don't even know what's going to happen. I think that my brain will explode, my heart will explode, and if I'll have a stroke, and I'll probably not even survive the weekend, because my excitement level, and it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me that we get these two things on the same weekend. In my life, I've never experienced anything like this.
A lot of times, big movies.
Nerd Viagra, dude.
Nerd Viagra, constant state of arousal. So I've often been asked questions, because there have been times when like a big movie would be opening at the same time that a big new season of a popular Netflix show was dropping, or something like that. And people would often ask all the time, hey, is this going to affect the opening weekend box office of such and such a movie? Normally, I'd say, no, not in a real way. I mean, there would be some, yes, but in any real practical dent, no, I don't think so. I'm telling you what, I think this will have an impact now on the Avengers Endgame. Don't get me wrong. Now people are going to say, John says that Avengers Endgame won't have a good opening weekend. No. It's going to have a ridiculously big opening weekend. It's going to be stupid how big the opening weekend is. but all I'm saying is, there are going to be a lot of people in this world who that Sunday night, instead of going to go see, it's like, okay, all the Endgame shows are sold out till Sunday night. About to buy the ticket. Whoa, wait a minute. I almost forgot. Battle of Winterfell is Sunday night. And I do think this will probably be the biggest example ever of people who stay home instead of going to the movies. And again, I don't think it's going to kill it. I don't think nothing like that. All I'm saying is, whereas a lot of times I think a big opening show on an opening weekend for a movie might do, hey, $1 million, $2 million worth of damage to a movie's opening weekend box office. Inconsequential, nothing too major.
Right.
This could be like a $7 or $8 million difference. Now, we're talking about a movie that's going to open north of $200 million. So that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But I think it's going to be like a real number as opposed to history, because there's a lot of people that are going to want to stay home and watch that. Don't you think?
And I think this episode is one of those 80 or 90 minute episodes too. So It's like, it's like a feature. People are going to have parties. I mean, I want to sit in a room. I hope that, like, they've shown Game of Thrones episodes, like Fathom Events has shown. I would love to go see this at the Chinese, man, on their IMAX screen. I would pay good money to see the Battle of Winterfell in a movie theater with a theater full of nerded out people like myself who are old school, new school, any school geeks that are just sitting there like John Schnepp used to say, sweaties, because we're all going to be sweating. Oh my God, I can't wait. Cannot wait.
What a great weekend that's going to be.
God,
that's going to be such a marvelous weekend.
Fantastic.
All right, listen, let's move on now to the final email of the day. And the final email today comes to us from Craig Stranton, who writes, hey, John, my question is, Do you think the legendary monsters or Monsterverse will go on after Kong versus Godzilla? And if so, when do you think they will reveal those new movies? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Craig. And that is a good question, Rob,
It
because
is.
we're talking about a movie universe right now where you've had Kong, you've had Godzilla. Sorry, you've had Godzilla, then you had Kong. Now you're going to have another Godzilla, then you're going to have Kong versus Godzilla. And where do you go after that? And from a narrative point of view, it's fair to at least raise the question and say, well, hey, like now the world just knows the big giant monsters in there, and how many times can we have humanity going, oh my gosh, there's a giant monster? Like how many times can you do that? And like once you culminate it in Kong versus Godzilla, and we've already got Ghidorah coming in the new Godzilla, like we're having some of the best kings of all the monsters stuff. Where do you just end it there? Do you just end it after that, or do you think they've got a bright future moving forward?
Hell no, dude. They got to bring in the aliens. One of my favorite Japanese monster movies from the mid 60s is, of course, Godzilla versus Monster Zero, or Godzilla versus the Astro Monster. And everyone knows the aliens from Planet 10, they ask to borrow Godzilla and Rodan because they've got a Ghidorah problem. But really, what they want to do is brainwash Godzilla and Rodan and Ghidorah, and they send all three of them against the Earth in their bid to take over.
Dun, dun.
Aliens, dude. They got to have the controller in his cool silver and black outfit and his rad little sunglasses. I mean, that's where you go. You bring in the aliens and the maser cannons, and I can't wait. I'm a huge kaiju fan. I mean, between Gundam and Godzilla and Kong movies, Legendary is killing it on the giant monster robot front. Bring in Jet Jaguar, bring in Megalon. Hell, do the Destroy All Monsters movie. I guess that's what we're kind of getting now. But
yeah,
man, do I love these movies. And yes, there's always places to go. You got to have the two little girls that come, the Cosmos, that sing the Mothra song. Mosura. You got to have them. Come on, man.
Well, I mean, look, it does. I think there could be an issue of maybe diminishing returns. Here's where I would get worried. And the only way I would get worried about this is that, look, the new Godzilla comes out, it makes the $400 to $500 million range. Acceptable, but not a huge hit. Profitable, but not a monster hit. No pun intended. And then you have Godzilla versus Kong, and that also stays in that neighborhood. Because let's face it, the Godzilla movie and Kong Skull Island were not massive blockbusters, right? Now, of course, the trailer for the new Godzilla King of the Monsters, the trailers have been outstanding, and people seem to be getting pumped. But I got a feeling that if both the upcoming movies live in that $400 to $550, $600 million range, I got a feeling Godzilla vs. Kong will be it. If they exceed that number, then I can't see why Warner Brothers would stop. Why would you? You've got no shortage of giant monsters you can throw in there. If people are loving Kong and loving Godzilla, no reason to stop. Keep the good times rolling, as the case may be. So, but I think it all comes down to the box office. Because by Kong versus Godzilla, you'll now be on your fourth film in this monster universe. You could wrap it up there, but I think the box office is going to determine it, to be honest with you. I really think it's going to be all about how many people go to see it.
That's true.
All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's save some time now and go over and take some live questions and hear from what you guys are saying. By the way, guys, don't forget to jump down in the comments section and leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we discussed here today, and keep the conversation going. Let's go over to the live questions now. And we're going to start things off today. Who are we starting with? We're starting off with John Wadkin, and John Wadkin writes, "Happy International Women's Day, everybody. Yes, just please do not take Robert's advice and don't celebrate it like Wade Wilson does. Unless that's your thing. If that's your thing, you go ahead and you have yourself a good time.
If you have a Marina McCarran in your life, come on.
Yeah, well, yeah, you might do just about anything at that point. Luke1234 writes, how long will Marvel keep their new opening? Well, I don't think at all. I think they're going to have their opening for Captain Marvel, and I think that will be it. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you will know immediately what we're talking about when you go and see Captain Marvel. They do something real special for their opening. I'm not going to reveal anything about it. All I'm telling people is make sure you are in your seat on time. because you know the big Marvel opening for every Marvel movie, bump, bum, 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 and you see like the quasi-animated Captain America throwing the shield and Hulk and all the different characters coming in, ba, 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 and then ends with Marvel, right? They do something really cool with that you are not going to want to miss. So make sure you see that. All right, Mike Hill writes, do you think Shazam will replace Superman in the DCEU and we will never see Superman again? I don't think the success or the failure of Shazam, either way, I've said this before, I will say it again. I don't think either the success or the failure of Shazam will have any impact on what DC is doing. And I certainly don't see Shazam, who is a completely different kind of character, Rob, than Superman is. I certainly don't see Warner Brothers looking at Shazam as a replacement for Superman.
No.
I think the fate of Superman at this point is completely independent of whatever happens with Shazam. What do you think?
I agree. And look, Superman is the most iconic superhero of all. And
He's the king.
He's the king, and they have to bring him back. I mean, he's too big not to bring back. But I think, if we see another Superman movie, I think we know that the tone of it is going to be lighter than the Henry Cavill versions of Superman. I mean, as much as you and I are Man of Steel lovers, and I love the beginning of Batman v Superman, seeing the battle of Superman and Zod from Bruce Wayne's point of view. I love all that. But I think, we'll get a more lighthearted Superman, which is, I think now, seeing where they're going after Aquaman and now Shazam, you could make a great Superman movie. It does not have to be so dark, and there's lots of things that you could do with it. And there's many Superman stories that they could adapt that are more lighthearted. And I think
we saw them doing that in Justice League, right? Like we saw them starting to move Superman in that direction in Justice League. And I think that just makes sense because the character is now becoming more comfortable with who he is.
Right.
And with Man of Steel, he was in a very different place. But now that he's more comfortable with his identity and who he is, you're starting to see that personality come out. And I agree with you. I think they're going to move in that direction.
Yeah.
All right. Next question today comes to us from David Galvez, who writes, hey, John, is there a comic or novel that you personally love that is yet to be adapted on the big screen? Keep it filthy. You're the best in the biz. Well, thank you so much, David. I appreciate that. Man, I don't know. Most of them really have been done. Like I was hoping for Runaways for a long time, and now we've got Runaways, and I finally finished season 2, by the way. I finally finished Runaways season 2. I really like that show. Speaking of Runaways, in the vein of Brian K. Vaughan, I'm really curious to see a Saga. Now, I don't know. Saga would be very, I confess, would be very difficult to make. But I would love to see them take a crack at that. Rob, do you got any that you'd really like to see?
Yeah, one of my favorite comics of all time is Howard Chaykin's American Flag from the early 80s. And they had announced that Luc Besson's company had bought that or was going to develop it, but we haven't heard anything about that in a couple of years. And then the other thing, it's completely non-genre related. One of my favorite books of all time is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. And I had heard Gwyneth Paltrow had bought the rights to it years ago. I don't know what the status of that is, but I'd love to see like Scott Rudin produce and Steve Zalian write the script and David Fincher directing. But that's a wonderful, wonderful book. It has nothing to do with geeky stuff, though.
All right, let's move on here. Next up is Technovine, who writes, just get the $159.99 1/10 Iron Studios Thanos, John. I have seen that Thanos. It looks really good. But if I'm going to buy the smaller, I prefer 1/6 or larger. If I'm going to buy the smaller stuff, I want a better deal than $159. Like I've got some Kotobukiya stuff here, and I really like Kotobukiya's stuff.
Yep.
But it's at a much lower price point. So the Thanos looks great, but if I'm going to spend like over $100 on something, I want something larger. I want the 1/6 scale stuff. So that's just me.
Dude, Hot Toys Thanos, brah.
Which one?
Hot Toys Thanos.
Yeah, well, that's $400, man.
Yeah, but worth every penny.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I am thinking about it. Anne says I can get it for myself. Since I didn't get myself a birthday present, she said maybe I can get that. But anyway, okay. Ellen Gonzalez writes, Captain Marvel, good, fun origin movie. Completely agree. I think a lot of people, again, it's this 10-10-10 or 0-0-0 world. I say Captain Marvel's really good. It's not in the upper echelon of the Marvel movies. Like it's not on Winter Soldier level. It's not on, Infinity War level, but it's a really good, fun film. And people interpret that and going around saying, oh, Campy didn't like it that much. No, I did. I liked it as much as I liked Doctor Strange, as much as I liked Ant-Man, and I really enjoyed those films. So I think it's a really good, fun film as well. All right. Lee Mallinson writes, Week of Captain Marvel release, and the conversation changes to the Shazam thanks to these reviews. DC Warner Brothers showing some posture and swagger for a change. Hey man, here's the thing. I don't know that there's any of that going on. I just know that I was thrilled to see Warner Brothers finally show some damn confidence in their properties. That has been one of my biggest pet peeves with Warner Brothers over the years. For them to finally step up, say, we believe in this film so much, we're going to let you talk about it like a month out, because nothing good can come out of bad word of mouth now. So that meant they were confident. And if you show confidence in your film, well, then maybe I can show confidence in it too as a film fan, right? When you don't show confidence, we as film fans go, well, then why should we feel confident in your movie if you're not even confident? I just think it's great that they did that. And again, I think another sign of the change of the times under the leadership of Walter Hamada. Let's see how well that thing keeps going. Okay, we're moving on now to Gabriel Reed, who writes, as a giant fan of the MCU, Captain Marvel didn't work for me. It was entertaining enough, but I felt Brie was hit and miss. The story was convoluted at times, but I can't wait to see what happens with her next. C+. I personally thought one of the strongest elements, because if you guys saw my review, I had a list of things that I thought were weaknesses in the film. I actually felt the story was one of the better stories I've ever had in an MCU movie. And again, I have a list of things that I think were weaknesses in it, but that to me, I actually thought the story of the film was probably the strongest part. I thought it was probably the most sophisticated out of any of the MCU stories so far. And that it tripped up a little bit in some other places, which is why I don't put it on the same level as, say, an Infinity War. But hey, man, that's why all film is subjective. You're going to like some things more than I do. I'm going to like some things more than you do, and it's all good. I'm glad to hear that you still got some entertainment out of it. That's the bottom line. That's all that really matters, and I'm glad you had a good time. All right, next up, Zachary Buckler writes, do these super positive reviews for Shazam change your box office prediction for it? Thanks, and have a great weekend, guys. Well, Rob, I'm not sure I've ever had a solid, I've thrown out a few wild guesses, but I said I reserve the right to change my number on this because we're so far out. We haven't, heard anything about it yet. I don't know. Are you at this point prepared to give a guess to how much like a Shazam could make opening weekend?
No, it's here's the thing. I mean, no. The simple answer is no. I think it's going to do very well. I think the fact that they were really smart allowing the social media embargo to lift, it's going to build word of mouth, and I think people are just going to be really stoked to see it. So I think it's going to open on the higher end of things. I could see it opening to something like maybe 125 or over. But again, I don't know. I think, again, it's going to be a monster hit because it's a movie that families are going to go to. Again, I've been saying that I think that the female audience is going to turn up for Captain Marvel that hasn't quite been taken into consideration yet because they're not normally, the tracking numbers aren't reflecting how many women are going to go see this movie this weekend. But I think that it could be 100 million opener plus.
Yeah,
I think.
My first wild guess is going to be 115. That's my first wild guess. Okay. But again, reserve the right to change that as we get closer to the film. We actually get a sense of how people are feeling about it. Jacob Zilla writes, with the new reviews out, it seems as if David S. Sandberg is 3 for 3. How cool is it that a fellow short film / YouTube director? Well, I mean, look, this guy he's living the dream, Robert. He's living the dream for a lot of people who make short films for YouTube and whatever, because his short film magically turned into getting a feature-length film that the studio let him direct himself. That turned out to be great. And now he's doing this. I mean, he is kind of living the dream of people who dream about becoming filmmakers and think, hey, let's make a short film, put it on YouTube. Look what can happen. I mean, now look, he's 1 in a million. But it does give some hope. Does that make you want to grab the camera now and start shooting some short films for YouTube, Rob?
Yeah, well, I just finished editing a short film that we did as a proof of concept for a feature, and work begets work. People are always asking me, well, how do you break into the business? Well, this way. You break into the business by making movies. I mean, Sam Raimi began his career by making The Evil Dead. He shot The Evil Dead on 16 millimeter with a bunch of his friends, one of which was Bruce Campbell. And they had some talent, and they made this bonkers horror film back in 81. It put him on the map. Stephen King saw it and said it was great, and he was off to the races. It's what you got to do. In my experience, work begets work. You do work, you get it out there, and something will happen. I mean, you still have to have a modicum of talent, but you don't know if you won't try. So this is a perfect example.
All right, next up, we got Sam Fisher writes, Robert, what did you think of the new Good Omens trailer?
Oh man, I think it looks great. Now, if you guys haven't read, Good Omens is a book that was written. It was co-written by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Terry Pratchett has passed away, but the book is fantastic. And the show, I mean, Michael, you've got Doctor Who, and you've got not Michael Shannon, but Michael, the other British Michael
Sheen.
Michael Sheen, yeah, Michael Sheen, and why am I drawing a blank on the doctor's name? David Tennant, and they're the lead. David Tennant plays a demon from hell, and Michael Sheen plays the angel, and they have to fend off the apocalypse. And the book is great, and it looks great. The show looks great, but I mean, we have to wait till like May 31st or something. I can't wait to see this show. I'm gonna binge the whole thing.
All right, next up comes to us from, where are we at? Ethan's Tech World, who writes, seeing Captain Marvel at 7 p.m. I love days like this. It's always great days, like whether it's a new DC movie opening, or it's a new big Marvel movie opening, or it's a new Godzilla movie opening, or a new Mission Impossible, or a new Star Wars, or whatever. I always wake up with a smile already on my face on days that I know I get to see this movie today. It's always a great day, and I'm glad you're having that kind of a day, Ethan. All right, Dim Sum puts in a couple in a row here, so we're going to fire through them here. I'm surprised how much I love this movie, talking about Captain Marvel. I still can't believe reviewers I follow thought a ton of the parts in the movies were mediocre. I think this is going to be one of those movies that gets better repeat viewings like Ultron or Guardians of the Galaxy 2. My niece was super stoked for the movie, ate it up. The movie was great. Loved going on the adventure with Danvers, Fleck, and Bowden did a great job. My enthusiasm level for Captain Marvel, Dim Sum, isn't quite at your level, isn't quite that big, but I had a very good time at it. I had a great time, and what's really great to me, what was pleasantly surprising to me, is that the areas that I was not looking forward to, the elements, I should say, of Captain Marvel that I wasn't looking forward to, ended up kind of being some of my biggest, most pleasant things in the movie. And it's always great when any movie can surprise you on any level. And there are a number of those things. And like I said, to me, this is a good, solid movie in the vein of a Doctor Strange to me, but an important movie leading into Endgame. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, John, do I have to see Captain Marvel in order to see Endgame? Answer to that is no. No. But at the same time, if you think you're excited about Endgame right now, by the time you walk out of Captain Marvel, your excitement for Endgame will be elevated. Now, so again, not a movie you must see to see Endgame. Like if Captain Marvel looks like a movie that doesn't appeal to you, you don't have to go see it in order to watch Endgame. Don't worry about that. You're good. You're safe. But if you see this movie, you will become even more hyped for Avengers Endgame. All right, thanks a lot for that, Dim Sum. All right, Tim Hortons, better than Starbucks. Preaching truth there, Tim, preaching truth. Right, it's unfortunate people will watch the Michael Jackson documentary and jump to a verdict without looking at all the facts. There's more evidence proving innocence. Regardless, people should make informed decisions, even though we'll never know the truth. And that is one of the big things. Like, a lot of people have been asking me, and Rob, we talked about this on the show the other day, but about the Michael Jackson film, the documentary, Leaving Neverland, that's out right now. And I said, I have not seen it, nor do I intend on seeing it. Because, I brought this up the other day, but it bears repeating because you're asking about it, Tim, is that, a lot of people have always asked me over the years, when do you think we're going to get a Michael Jackson biopic? And I've always said, it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a while. Because there is no way to make that movie that doesn't set you up as a studio for disaster. If you make the movie under the assumption that all the stuff about child abuse was all myth and not real, and you just focus on the life and the music of Michael Jackson, you're going to have a lot of people pissed off at your film. However, if you take the starting presumption that all the rumors and the rumblings about child abuse and all that stuff were real, then you're going to make that movie and you're going to piss off a lot of people. And I've just always said over the years, I don't see how there's any win in this. I don't see a winning scenario for any studio, Rob, that would want to make this film. And I think a movie like Leaving Neverland, Finding Neverland is a very different movie. Leaving Neverland, I think a movie like that just kind of proves the point. So there are already people so upset at this movie because they're saying they're glossing over a lot of the facts. They're glossing over a lot of stuff that happened like in legal trials and blah, blah. There are some people that are saying, why have we never heard this stuff before? This is evidence that should have been talked about a long time ago. So you got people on both sides of the fence. And I've always said, for me personally, I'm not saying this is how other people should feel. I'm simply talking for myself. I will never know the truth in that situation. I will never know the truth. So I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion on it because I have no opinion. I don't know what the truth is. I've seen a lot of contradictory stuff. And so I'm just staying out of it. I'm not saying anybody's right. I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm just saying I recuse myself from the discussion. And I think, Tim, the email you write in is a really good example of that. And there's nothing wrong with what you're saying, Tim, at all. I'm just saying it's that type of stuff that has made me go, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with the Michael Jackson situation. I'm going to stay out of it completely. I don't want to watch that movie. I don't want to hear from either side. I've been following this stuff for years, and all I know is that I'm never going to know. And so I'm just kind of recusing myself. I don't know, Rob, you see all this kind of stuff. By the way, I don't know if I've asked you, have you seen Leaving Neverland or do you plan on watching it?
I've read a lot about it. I don't know if I would want to watch it, but I also do think that, I'm with you. You're never going to know. I think these issues are more complex. There's more to know than we do know, and we'll never know. And again, it's unfortunate all the way around. So, yeah.
You're right. It is unfortunate all the way around. And again, I just don't see the win. I just don't see the win in it for anybody. Okay, let's move on here. Next one up is Aaron H., who writes, Captain Marvel was a big bowl of fun, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And simply put, Thanos, you are in deep shit, big fella. Well, here's the thing that I've always thought, the way I think they may position Captain Marvel, and this is, don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything. This is exactly what I said before I saw Captain Marvel. So don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything here. I always said the way I could see it happening, because Feige has said for a long time that Captain Marvel is the most powerful character in the MCU. What I could see them doing is like what they did in Justice League, because some people watch Justice League and think, it was all they needed. They didn't even need anybody else. Superman could have done the whole thing by himself. No, he couldn't. Watch Justice League again. Could Superman maybe have taken on Steppenwolf by himself? Yeah, that becomes clear. But it also becomes clear that he wasn't going to be able to save the day without everybody else. Everybody in the Justice League had a role to play in saving the day, and they were all needed. And Thanos is not Steppenwolf. Thanos if you want to get an equivalent to the DCU, is Darkseid, right? So what I think, Captain Marvel, I think, will become a tipping point factor, much like Superman was a tipping point factor. I think you're going to see that. I don't think Kevin Feige suddenly fell down in the shower and became stupid. And I don't think they're going to have it now that, Captain Marvel's going to fly up an Endgame and say, Avengers, just sit down and rest your feet. I'll deal with this. I don't think that's what Kevin Feige is going to be doing at all. And Rob, I know going into this movie, you never felt that either, right? Like you don't see Feige taking that kind of an avenue, do you?
No. And remember, guys and girls and gentle people out there, Thanos won. What's Captain Marvel going to do? I have no idea. Thanos already snapped half the universe into non-existence. He dusted everyone. I'm sure he dusted half the Kree. I don't know what Captain Marvel's going to accomplish.
All right, let's move on here. Next one comes us from Christopher Hammerich, who writes, is Star Wars doomed if Episode 9 fails with the fan? Nah, not at all. Star Wars has endured over 4 decades. Star Wars has endured over 4 decades. A couple of divisive films, because let's face it, The Last Jedi was a divisive film. And a couple in a row ain't going to kill 4 decades of fandom. It's just not going to happen. I mean, look, if Star Wars could survive the prequels, which it did, it'll survive this. Now, is it good if Episode 9 ends up being as divisive as The Last Jedi was, where like a bunch of people like, a bunch of people hate it? No, that's not good. That's not good. But does it kill Star Wars? No. That's taking a very, very small look at a very large picture. This is a franchise that has endured for 4 decades plus. So a couple of bumps in the road will not derail it. It's not good. It's a setback. But no, it wouldn't kill it, not in the least. ZOMG Ruler writes, Captain Marvel wasn't that good in my opinion, but I'm glad folks liked it. And hey, look, not every film is for everybody, and that's the key thing. As long as you're still happy that other people liked it, that's all that matters, ZOMG. Stubble McShave writes, when the DCU started Warner Brothers, they said, we don't do funny stuff. And yes, Stubble, I still remember that. I still remember that back in the day, and Rob, I'm sure you remember this too.
Oh, yeah.
When they would go, oh, no, we're not into this. And it's like, how times have changed because now you are. And it was a good move. Like, you'd be stupid. Look, they say, Rob, that the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting different results, right? Well, they realized, hey, this isn't getting us the results that we want. Let's change it up. Look, you go into something with a game plan. Warner Brothers had a game plan when they started. And it didn't work. As Mike Tyson used to say famously, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. DC took a couple of punches in the mouth. And so what do? Let's just keep doing what we're doing? No. Over the long haul, over the course of several movies, they said, okay, time to course correct. They brought in Walter Hamada. They've done a course correction. And yeah, I mean, we can laugh at them. You used to say this. Yeah, but the sign of an intelligent strategist is, hey, take a look at the overall picture. Have what we've been doing over the course of years been working? If the answer is no, you would make adjustments and you come out and you do something a little bit differently. And that's what smart people do. So I see this as a good thing. I think this is a feather in the cap of Warner Brothers, if anything, Rob. I see this as a good thing.
Me too. 100%.
All right, let's move on to the next question here. This one comes to us from Tim Hortons Better Than Starbucks, who writes, the other day I meant Tony Stark's character arc is underappreciated. The shit he went through and overcame, I think it'll be looked at in the future of how great it is. Well, you know what? Honestly, the last time I spoke with Robert Downey Jr., one of the things I said to him is the character arc of Tony. Tony isn't my favorite character in the MCU. That's Captain America. But the character arc of Tony has been demonstrably evolving every single film. He still has his core personality, but when you look at the first Iron Man movie, Tony, compared to the Tony we have now, it's a very different Tony. And every film that he's appeared in, I think he's evolved and they've added new layers to him. I mean, I thought it was brilliant when they went into Iron Man 3 and they started addressing the PTSD issues, his changing worldview. Because here's the thing, Rob, when you go into Civil War, the Tony of Iron Man 1 would absolutely have been on Captain America's side in Civil War. Absolutely. But he was who he was. That was the culmination of who he was. How would you describe the evolution of the Tony Stark character up to now?
Well, you know, I think it's really interesting. He's a man that at first he was an arms dealer and he was very much out for himself. And then he realized through the course of we saw what happened in Iron Man 1, he had a complete change of heart. And he's realized that his life should be about protecting humanity and protecting mankind. And as the films progress, the threats to mankind, now extraterrestrial and indeed universal in origin, are so far beyond what he imagined from Iron Man 1 that what his job has become almost untenable. And he still feels this need, as he said, to put armor around the world. And in a way, what happened in Avengers Infinity War is the culmination of his failure to do so. And I think Tony Stark has become an incredibly well-defined, tragic figure over the course of the MCU. And it's been really fascinating to watch. I mean, he became less selfish and he's become a good man, but what he wants to then achieve maybe is impossible, and he failed miserably to do it. And that's what happened in Infinity War. And I find it incredible that a giant studio allowed Tony Stark's arc to be what it is. And maybe I think what Endgame will have in it, either it'll have hopefully redemption for Tony or his end. Yeah, either way, it's a great story.
Yeah, it has been great. All right. Javier Rios, 405 writes, did you ever get to see Once Upon a Deadpool? Yeah, I did. I didn't think it was worth paying money to go see, and I'm glad I didn't pay money to go see it in the theater. I'll be honest with you. Rob, did you ever get around to watching
No, I never
Once Upon
did.
a Deadpool? It's cute, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was what it was. Alex Perez writes, for me, Captain Marvel was as good as Venom. You know, Venom was a movie that I was so pleasantly surprised by. Like, I walked out of that movie, like, I remember with me and Rand, like, that was fun. And so, hey, if you appreciate it on that level, that's great, Alex. Viper91 writes, got to be honest, I like Thor 2 more than Captain Marvel. Yeah, I mean, look, everybody's going to have movies that they like more than the other ones. Nothing wrong with that. The Bab C writes, if Shazam is a big success, how would that help or hurt the chances of a new Superman movie? Please give me good news. I need a Superman movie yesterday. Nothing. Look, if anything, and I think the effect will be nothing. If anything, a big successful Shazam movie might even delay another Superman movie even more, only because it might make the brass at Warner Brothers go, hey, we were making a DCU that focused on Batman and Superman. We did not get the results we wanted. Now we are making completely solo movies, and we're using characters like Aquaman and Shazam, and we're trying these other characters, and we're having great success. If anything, it might even delay it more. But honestly, like I said a little bit earlier, Babsy, I don't think the overwhelming success or the overwhelming failure of Shazam would affect it one way or the other in any real or practical way. Mads Vjada writes, let's see here. Will Disney Plus have the title that is locked deepest in the vault, The Song of the South, 1946? I think there's a 0% chance that that's going to happen. That is just a ball of worms. I know I mixed metaphors there. That is a ball of worms that Disney just does not need and just does not want. They don't want to launch Disney Plus, or even within the first year or two, and have any kind of controversy surrounding it. It would be an absolutely idiotic move of them to do, strictly from a business point of view. Whatever your position on this is, from a business perspective, it would be really idiotic. And anybody that did it and pulled the trigger on that would eventually get fired. So I don't see any chance of that happening. Zach Bartron writes, should we be a little worried about Dumbo because of Ewan Kruger being the screenwriter who hasn't had that great of a track record with stuff like Scream 3, Transformers 2 through 4, and others? Or should we have faith in Disney? I don't know, Zach. I'll be honest with you. I remember talking about that about a year ago. That was one of the kind of thing when you look at who wrote it. Of course, more importantly is who's directing it, and that's because a director can take a screenplay and do some things with it. And you got Tim Burton in there. Now, I'm not the world's biggest Tim Burton fan. I've said that many times. But I don't know, man. All I can say is so far, Rob, this movie looks sweet and looks endearing and looks like it's got a lot of heart. Now, this is just the trailers. Maybe it's complete garbage, but I don't know. I'll tell you what. I'm not the biggest Tim Burton fan, but I'm going to be going into Dumbo with some pretty good expectations because I'm thinking it looks pretty good. Are you worried at all about this?
No, it looks good to me. I just read this morning that it's tracking to open at 60 million, which is respectable. Again, I don't know. I mean, like you, I was not a fan of what he did with Alice in Wonderland at all. And but I think this movie looks like, look, I want to see a movie. Peak Tim Burton to me is Edward Scissorhands, or Big Fish or something like that. I want to see the sweetness and the warmth that I felt watching Edward Scissorhands in this Dumbo movie, and it seems that it might have that. It looks like the classic story that I grew up watching, and I am kind of excited.
All right, let's move on here. Ashley Whalen fan account writes, should studios have a separate spoiler embargo that lifts after opening weekend? No, because of simply this. What's a spoiler?
Right.
Because I guarantee you, Ashley Whalen fan club, whatever definition you give is going to be different from the guy standing next to you. And the difference and the definition that guy gives is going to be different than the girl standing next to him. There is simply, what is a spoiler? If you say, there's this one great scene where, Coulson and a Fury are talking in a car. Well, spoiler! What? You just told me that, Coulson and Fury are in a car together at some point. That's a spoiler. That may sound ridiculous, but I've had people scream that at me at some points. I kid you not. Some people think like me, it's only huge events that would transform your viewing experience of the movie if you knew it before seeing it. but others have a much looser definition of spoiler. So there's really no point because, again, then you're getting into this nebulous thing of a term that has no true definition. You get 100 people in a room and ask them what a spoiler is, you're going to get 100 different definitions. So it's just simply something that the studios could not do. They couldn't enforce it. There's no way to enforce it. Absolutely none. So, there's no point in doing that because there's no way they could make it happen anyway. Let's see here. Trondum writes, is Agent Coulson still alive in the MCU? Well, the only way to know that, like in the cinematic universe? I don't know. It depends on who you ask. Like, Joss Whedon has always said that, to me, Coulson's dead, even when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going on. But, Joss Whedon does not speak for the entire MCU. I think, it all depends on what they do with them in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this year. I think we'll see Clark Gregg back again. I think we will. Captain Marvel doesn't really count because it's a prequel, but I think we'll see Coulson again at some point. What about you, Rob? Do you think we're going to see Clark Gregg back as Agent Coulson in the MCU at some point?
Well, if we see anybody else who was dusted in the MCU, why not? Bring back Coulson. Everyone loves Coulson. I don't know how they're going to do it, but we're going to see somebody come back from being snapped.
Yeah,
maybe.
I agree. Lots of people
in a different universe.
They're all coming back being snapped. All right, let's see here. Nicholas Glenn writes, thoughts on Cobra Kai Season 2 trailer. This has got to be the best soft reboot in history. The writing is the new gold standard in honoring old characters. Lucasfilm could have used the writers. I'll be straight up with you, Nicholas. Just going to be honest with you. I think Karate Kid sucks. Or Cobra Kai. I think Cobra Kai sucks. Now, I acknowledge I am in the minority of that. I am also in the minority in that opinion in my own house. Because, me and Ann and Kaori, we all sat down to watch Cobra Kai. And they were loving it. And I was like, this sucks. And they looked at me like they were going to kill me. And I was excited for Cobra Kai. You guys remember, if you were watching me that long, I was excited for Cobra Kai. I was pumped for it. I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was CW even for CW. I thought it was too CW even for CW. I just thought it was horrendous. Just horrendously bad. But I acknowledge I am in the vast minority on that. And that's cool. And a lot of people love that show. And so I was really happy for people that a second season was coming. But yeah, I also thought that the trailer for Karate Kid Season 2 looked like it was just more awfulness to me. But I don't know, Rob, did you even see Cobra Kai Season 1?
Yeah.
What did you think of it? And did you like the trailer for the new one?
Yeah, look, I agree that, first of all, it's Karate Kid. It's not like it's Back to the Future or something. But Karate Kid is beloved. And I thought what they did, it was like what they did with Creed. They reinvented and reinvigorated this and this franchise and carried it forward. And I thought it was really interesting. This one of the great villains of my youth is kind of this down on his luck schleprock who's his life hasn't quite lived up to anything because he's been disgraced. And it was, I don't know, I really dug it. And I thought the way that they made a villain into this sympathetic character that you actually care about what's going to happen to him was really interesting. And I do think the writing was really good. But like you, look, it looks like it cost 5 cents to make. And indeed, it probably did. It was made at a very, very low budget. And so it's not as flashy, but I appreciated it. It really had its heart in the right place.
All right. And I know a lot of people love it. And that's why I'm so glad that it got a second season so people can be happy. And because I just want there to be joy in the world, Rob. I just want there to be joy.
Me too.
Let's move on here. Jay Miller writes, just finished watching Breaking Bad and absolutely loved it. What's your favorite episode? Mine is Ozymandias, the one where Walt is exposed. Mine is actually unpopular because I've heard a lot of people say it might be their least favorite episode. I can't remember the name of the episode, Rob, but you'll know the one I'm talking about. The one with the fly.
That's what it's called. The Fly.
That's the name of the episode.
And you know who directed that episode?
I don't know, but I want to shake their hand because I think the episode's fantastic.
Rian Johnson, director of The Last Jedi.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
I had no idea.
He directed that episode.
I had no idea. That is my favorite episode of Breaking Bad. I absolutely love that episode. But anyway, Rob, I know you're a big Breaking Bad fan. What's your favorite episode of Breaking
God,
Bad?
I don't know. There's so many different ones. I mean, Ozymandias is a great episode. It's a great episode. But I don't know. I don't know if I could pinpoint one episode. You know what? The episode where Gus Fring dies and he gets
Oh,
blown up.
the effect of that was so powerful.
When he walks out of the room after the bomb goes off, I was like, I remember going, "What the hell?" And then dude, that truly is, and that might not be one of the best episodes of the show, but that was truly a moment in my life where I was stopped, my breath caught, and I couldn't believe that to me is when Breaking Bad went into the stratosphere. Not that it hadn't already, but that was truly a moment where I'm like, I have never seen that before. And I love Gus, love that character. And I couldn't believe what they did. I was just like, no way.
All right, let's move on to the next issue here. The next one comes to us from Willow Yang, who writes, the only thing that upsets me about the early buzz for Shazam is that the movie is still not out for another month. I cannot wait. And that, Willow, is exactly what Warner Brothers wanted. That is exactly the reaction that they wanted, which makes just adds again to their decision to release the social media embargo now. And then guess what? They're going to get this big buzz again when they lift the full review embargo. So that's why these studios do this now, where if they believe in the film, they'll have two separate embargoes: the social media embargo to get a big smack of positive energy and buzz, and then the full review embargo later to get another wave of positive buzz going. That's what they did. It just goes to their decision, and it was a really good move on their part. Again, it doesn't mean anything if the movie sucked, but apparently they got a lot of faith in it. Akeem writes, Captain Marvel, solid B-. Ben Mendelsohn was amazing. Ben Mendelsohn is incredible as the villain in this film. I was not expecting a lot. I honestly didn't, because, Marvel, they've been getting better. They've been getting much better, but traditionally Marvel has struggled a little bit with their villains. Ben Mendelsohn, I don't want to say anything, though, but Ben Mendelsohn is great in this movie. Maya Demi writes, saw Captain Marvel today. I loved it as much as Doctor Strange. Don't know why people would call it Captain Feminism or so. It wasn't that at all. Talos was awesome. Yeah, the interesting thing about Captain Marvel is there's no moment in this film. Like the way some people have been talking about it, you'd think it was like there are going to be 8 speeches in the film where Captain Marvel goes, I know I can do it because I'm a woman and women are strong. There's none of that in the movie. There's literally none of that in the movie whatsoever. But at any rate, people made up their minds about this thing because it's a girl and whatever beforehand. So you just ignore those people. But I'm glad you had a good time with it. And I think a lot of people are going to have a good time with it this weekend. All right. Taki75 writes, saw Captain Marvel yesterday. Agree 100% with John. Solid second tier MCU. Biggest negative for me were some badly lit action scenes. Ooh, you know what? I agree. And one of the things that I said coming out of it was some of the action is incredible and some of it not so much. And one of the reasons that some of the action scenes didn't work so well for me was because of one of the things you're mentioning, the lighting of it. And I also said this, I believe there are some questionable moments, some questionable CGI in some moments in this film, particularly in a couple of the action shots. Again, some of the action shots are amazing, but there's a couple that bad lighting, bad editing, and some questionable Ghibli CGI, if you will, that comes into play. And those also stand out to me as a couple of the negatives as well. But yeah, overall, I had a very good time with it, Taki. Okay, Nosferatu writes, we only got a few minutes left here, guys. Nosferatu writes, Matt Smith is reportedly not in Star Wars Episode 9, so I looked to the source, and I'm glad I did. The movie news outlet is broken. Well, I have not seen that story myself. I have not heard that Matt Smith was not in it, because we all heard that he's in it. So I haven't heard any rumors that he's not. I'll look into that myself, because who knows? Changes happen to films. Maybe he's not in the movie, but I haven't heard that one myself. But I'm glad you're going to the source and seeing what is the source of this. I'm glad you're looking into that, Nosferatu. Joe Byram writes, is it getting better or do you feel the same? Will it make it easier on you now? You've got someone to blame. One by U2, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually one of my favorite songs to play on guitar. It honestly is a ba-da-boom, ba-ba-da-da-ba. I love that song. Of course, U2 is my all-time favorite band. I love that. Good quote, Joe. Good quote. Okay. Jared Vester writes, all men betray, all lose heart. I don't want to lose heart. Braveheart, ladies and gentlemen. Robert of the Bruce talking to his father, and the father, all men betray, all lose heart. I don't want to lose. Great scene. Great scene in that movie. Love that movie. That movie's so good. Jay Bling. So my Captain Marvel screening last night had 2 Shazam trailers with it. Seriously? Really? That's intriguing. And it was at an AMC theater. Were they at least different trailers? Tell me they were at least like trailer 1 and trailer 2, and it wasn't just the same trailer repeated. But hey, man, even in movie theaters, little gaffes and little mix-ups happen. Okay, Nightmare 9999 writes, idea for Deadpool in the MCU, cameo appearance and or PG-13 fourth wall breaks can exist in both R and PG-13 rules and still be the character. See, here's the problem with that, Nightmare, and Rob, you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
The problem we see with that is that Bob Iger has emphasized that he's okay with the idea of doing R-rated stuff, but we have to make sure there is absolutely no confusion with our audience. That's why we're going to put it under a different label, a different brand. And who knows what'll happen, but my fear would be, if I was one of Bob Iger's advisors, would be, by putting him in the PG-13 movie, you may be causing some confusion with your audience, with the parents, and thinking, oh, well, he was in Captain America, so it's safe to take him to go see this. And if you're going on what Bob Iger says is the defining rule here, we don't want there to be any confusion with our audience about what kind of character this is and what you're going to get if you come to see this character. I'd be a little afraid that doing that, popping him into the PG-13 movies, and then that could cause that confusion. Rob, am I overstating that? Or if you were one of Iger's advisors, would you say, no, you can do this and it can work? How do you see it?
I think part of the appeal of that character is the R-rated nature of Deadpool. I mean, the fact that he says things that truly are jaw-droppingly shocking, and that's what makes him fun. I mean, he's anarchy personified. And he's funny, he's charming, he's got a romantic, he's a softie. And I just think that you could make him PG-13, but part of his appeal is that he's got a really foul mouth and he kills people and dismembers them and eviscerates them with lots of blood and with impunity. And that's why he's a fun character. And if you tamp that down and into PG-13, it could work. But the audience that gave those movies $500 million worth of cheddar at the box office are going to be disappointed. I don't think there's any way you can sort of tone down Deadpool and have it work. I just don't.
All right.
But that doesn't mean he couldn't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as we talked about. It could be
right.
It could be really funny if he tore his way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he doesn't have to always tell dirty jokes. But I'd still like to see R-rated Deadpool movies.
All right, final 3 questions of the day, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Fish Tacos writes, over under 30% Shazam beats Captain Marvel domestically. I'll take the over on that because, I believe we're talking about, I predicted, I've said this all along, a $90 to $100 million opening weekend. I'm sticking by that. I've stuck by through that thick and thin, and I think the $600 to $700 million range. I think because of the family nature of Shazam, the fact that it seems to be appealing to family-friendly lore as well as being pure comedy as well, but like really promoting a lot of the comedy and all that kind of stuff. I believe this is a film that can potentially be legitimately bigger than Captain Marvel. And I will take well over 30% that it could beat Captain Marvel domestically. I think they can both be big hits. And I think it can beat it. Zachary Buckler writes, over under on Barrowman showing up in season 8. Well, you got to give me a number. You got to you can't say over under. You got to say over under what? Over under what? Over under 10%? Over under 90%? I don't know. Look, I'll just say I think it would be a missed opportunity if Barrowman doesn't show up. He's been such a major player in this universe. I think he shows up in one way or another. And the final question today comes to us from Eric Huffman, who writes, so how much does Shazam need to make to be profitable? Not a lot. The reports are right now that they made Shazam for like $90 million, which is music to my ears. I love it when studios show financial responsibility and don't feel like you got to spend $240 million on a movie. They spent $90 million on making this. That means this movie doesn't even make $300 million to break even. I think this movie, its break-even point is probably just south of $300 million. And that means this movie is going to be profitable. This movie's going to be profitable. Because even if I'm way off and it doesn't make, the 700 to 800 million that I think it can, even if I'm way off, it's still going to be profitable. Even if it makes 400, that's like 100 million in profit. Even if it makes 5, that's 200 million in profit. This movie's going to be profitable. And everybody at Warner Brothers is going to be very, very, very happy with this thing, I think. All right, guys. That's all the time we have for now. For those of you who sent in super chat questions that we haven't got around to yet, Lee Edworthy, In Poor Taste Humor, Roman Bryant, Luke Blackwell, and all you guys all the way down there, do not worry. A little bit later today, I'm going to put up a companion video where I am going to answer all the questions you guys sent in a video a little bit later today. Just keep your eyes open for that coming a little bit later. That will do it for today's episode of the John Campea Show, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank, of course, the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett for being here as well. Robert, where can people find you online?
John, they can find me at Burnett RM on Twitter, find me on Instagram at RM Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnettwork, and my companion website, theburnettwork.net.
And of course, you guys can follow me on Instagram, simply at John Campea. And by the way, guys, go and check out the new website, thejohncampeashow.com. I also have some blog posts that I put up there. And again, that is where you go and send in your topics and questions now to be main topics on the John Campea Show. You don't email them in anymore. Now you go to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Special thank you to all you guys who are Patreon supporters. You guys are the ones who make this channel even possible. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, go to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information about what does it mean to be a Patreon supporter, how does being a Patreon supporter keep the show on the air, and even a couple of little perks that exist for Patreon supporters, and maybe you'll want to become a Patreon supporter too. All right, guys, that'll do it. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.